Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back. Welcome back, all you citizens of the world. It's time for our first guest, and I'm always glad when Katy Hogan, my longtime partner in business and in producing this show, comes on the show. I meet with her regularly because we're working on a book about the Heartland Cafe, and I know she feels a lot of angst, I would say, around the world situation these days. And she's full of information in trying to improve the situation. So I said, how about you come on the show? Or she said, I should come on the show. Good morning to you, Katy Hogan.
Really? I'm the one that's responsible for this? Okay. I'll take it. Good morning back to you, Michael. And since you told me I'd be on the show earlier this week, I've grabbed as much as I could of material. I have folders of stuff that I have printed out because I thought it would be useful for people. And I have to admit, I have lost my lesson of not printing stuff out. I used to be much more of a printer outer, and then I learned to save it on my computer, and if I never opened it, then I could toss it out then, but without having used. Anyway, I got all this printed material. It just made me more confused. I did start a list of outrages on our little notebook thing, which went on too long, and I couldn't, it was too depressing. But in case you forgot, people, we started this outrages January 20th with cabinet nominees, none of whom are qualified for the position that they were put in. Everyone knows this. But the cabinet nominees and other department head nominees were the first sign that things were not going to go according to plan. Then there were the presidential pardons of the January 6th attackers. Now we are 2 months later, he's wanting to look into and possibly prosecute the people who prosecuted the January 6th invaders. That's where we are there. Going on down the list, there was the deportation mess that began. We were momentarily delighted by confounding the deportation czar. He's the man who said out loud on tape, "Oh, the Chicagoans, they're too well educated. They've got this thing called Know Your Rights," which we translate into how to not go to jail. And we're all sitting there going, duh, yeah, that's the idea. Since they are trying to deport people in many, many cases who are absolutely have a right to be here. They have their green card. They may even be citizens. They are sweeping up people. And they're doing it more in other places because Chicago is too hard for them. But believe me, they'll be back. The OMB freeze, and then the absent any explanation, of course, much less, here's the reason we are closing things because of these numbers, et cetera. We all know that they are not going after targets that are spending, wasting, and blowing cash. For that, they would have to go across the street to the Pentagon, which they have not even talked about doing, much less doing. No, they're going for programs that actually help and prop up to the extent they can people who are in the most needy positions, not just in this country, but on the planet. The USAID thing left so many people across the planet high and dry. And these are programs that take very little money to actually carry out on the ground. Very little money. But they worked. We're talking the AIDS programs in Africa, the food for children in famine-riddled areas. It's incredible. Okay, then the abdication of DEI, which we've seen all manner of response to, and some of it is making its way through the courts. Let's see what else we got here. Musk's little minions with their hands on our data and the Treasury Department. Then they started the tariffs. What a fun little up and back down that has been. That's totally on Trump. Totally on Trump. He wants tariffs. And then he wakes up the next day and says, maybe not. And then he wakes up the next day and says, yeah, tariffs for sure on everybody who's ever been good to us, Mexico, Canada, etc. And then he'll say, well, maybe in 30 days. You know what that yanking around to people's livelihoods and actual money they depend on is doing? It's creating the chaos they wanted it to. And so let's see. I don't have to, everybody knows all the outrages, but I just wanted to remind you. And, and then we have the insulting image of Vance speaking in Europe like he knows anything. That it's just outrageous and so embarrassing and so appalling. And, Americans that care and that are paying attention. We have to remember there's a big chunk of Americans who don't give a flying you-know-what. They didn't vote in November, and they're sitting at home pretending that watching video games or movies or God knows what they do. I hope they play with their grandchildren, because if they keep not paying attention, their grandchildren will have a terrible life ahead of them in this country. So anyway, what have we done? What have we been doing to resist? Well, right off the bat in our neighborhood, Protect Rogers Park 2.0 was established. That's protect the people who are most in danger by the ICE raids and other deportation threats. So PRP 2.0 was in place right away, thanks to having done it 8 years ago when he first came on the scene and threatened mostly Latino Americans in our city, but many other nationals are threatened by this. Actually, any national of color, frankly, any national of color, Haitian, etc., they're under threat by this government, who is a white man's situation. Just remember where Musk came from, and let's learn more about how he was when our hero Mandela was let out of prison. Okay, so we worked with PRP. We learned what we had to learn. We got Know Your Rights cards printed up and passed out. We put butterflies on our windows. The monarchs are the symbol of this is a safe place for you if you're running from ICE. We have interrupted ICE proceedings, and that's good. And that has to continue, because they will continue. And just by the way, when they go out to grab somebody, God knows where they got this list of the somebodies. They're not lawbreakers, by the way. They're not picking up all the rapists and the robbers and the things that they've been trying to make you believe that most.
One of the things that a lot of us have hope for is the courts. That Biden did appoint a number of federal judges, even the Supreme Court. Roberts came out this week and was critical of Trump wanting to impeach the judge that had told him they couldn't deport people, these Venezuelan so-called gang members. They flew them to El Salvador, but apparently they broke the law on that. So there has been a lot of pushback in the legal realm. There was a judge who blocked the policy that would expel transgender troops, which another thing he did. And there's just recently, I think this morning, they moved the case of the Columbia graduate student who was at Palestine demonstrations at Columbia, and they were trying to deport him. They took him to Louisiana. The court said he has to be brought back to New Jersey, and that's where that will be dealt with. They haven't charged him with anything. They're just deporting him.
Right. A lot of these actions, by the way, just what you said, the Trump administration has never stopped to check what's legal and what's not, what's abdication of habeas corpus and what's not. They don't care. They're just going after the people they see as enemies or scary to them. And it has absolutely nothing to do with waste, fraud, and abuse of funds. It has everything to do with these guys having this fantasy world that they think they can build, which is, of course, impossible. Somebody at some point has to tap them on the shoulder and go, yo, dingbat, white people are a minority on the planet. You may win today, but you are definitely going to lose sometime, and worse because of what you're doing. So, yeah, the other thing about immigrants' rights, ICIRR, Illinois Committee for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, is a really great source for our listeners to go to for information in any neighborhood. I know PRP is just Rogers Park centric, but ICIRR is a citywide group. ACLU is a group you should be giving $5 a month to. Those lawyers are the ones at work right now in all the cases that Michael's talking about, and many that are just under the surface at the moment, but have been brought against the Trump administration. There will be many, many more.
I think that they're really trying to just break us down, have us going this way and that way, get depressed. They are trying to basically destroy the federal government structure. Like a judge just issued a ruling to rehire thousands of people that have been fired.
Right.
But the question is, will they be refired again? That's a possibility. We see retreats even in the military where over the DEI question, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they eliminated 26,000 photographs. I think you told me that initially, in references to women and people of color. And they've scaled that back and put some of it up. But they're just really bombarding us with terrible things, whether they're working and achieving their goal of supposedly making things more efficient and saving money. We know it's clearly an effort of destruction.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I think that what's important is we resist. And I think, why don't you share a little bit about how the resistance is going on both in the electoral or on the political level, as well as the movement in the streets. I mean, we have elections coming up that you have been, about.
I'll tell you. There's an election in 2 weeks in Wisconsin for Supreme Court Justice. Susan Crawford is the person that we're supporting. We are going up and knocking doors in Milwaukee every Saturday. There are 2 Saturdays left as I speak. If you hear this on Friday, it's not too late to sign up. Go to Operation Swing State or Indivisible. Either one of those are going up to Wisconsin every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're also phoning into Wisconsin for the Supreme Court race. Elon Musk will have a very bad day if we win. That is the motivation that I'm using at the door. And when I say that to voters at the door, their eyes light up. America wants to give Elon Musk a very bad day. So April 1st in Wisconsin, right after that, same thing, and a Supreme Court race for 2 seats on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court will also be absolutely integral to beating back these guys. The other stuff that we've been doing, we've already been downtown to march a couple times and to rally. There will be a nationwide rally April 5th, Saturday, April 5th. Everybody should plan to be in their town, out in the streets, in big numbers. That's off in the future, but not that far in the future. Between now and then, people should know if they want to gather with neighbors on a decent intersection near their house with homemade signs, flags, whether upside down or upright, doesn't matter, but saying, we are not good with this. The more Americans that are visibly saying we are not good with this, Musk should, the hands off is the theme of the April 3rd. Hands off our money, hands off our government, hands off, which is good. We also could just say enough is enough. But so anyway, standing out on the corners is something happening nationwide starting Thursday, the equinox, actually, equal day, equal night. which is tomorrow, but when you hear this show, anyway, every Thursday night from 7 to 7:30 in your time zone, stand out with neighbors. Soon that will become a bigger thing. You will see it grow. The 5 Calls app, it's called 5 Calls. Great tool. And some of you don't believe in calling Washington, D.C. I don't know why not. It makes a huge difference. Even if, as some of you say to me, well, why should I call Jan? She's doing great work. That's our congresswoman in the 9th CD in Chicago. Call her to say, thank you for doing good work. And how can you drag a few Republicans over, if there are any reasonable Republicans, and we support you, keep doing it, because she gets to then go into her congressional committee meeting or the actual Congress in session and say, I get this many calls a day saying WTF about this administration in various ways. I will never be able to not work on this because my people are telling me to keep doing it. So 5 Calls is definitely something you want to check out. Heather Cox Richardson, of course, Letters from an American is an incredible education. It's also one of those things like reading Robert Reich that makes you go, oh, but we should be going like that. It is desperately serious. Yeah, Michael, go ahead. Interrupt.
Well, in a few minutes we have left, Katy Hogan. One of the things I've been thinking about, and I thought about it before the last election, was having people like from small towns or larger towns in red states go home and spend some time working to register voters and to talk to people. It came up again for me, and I remembered, Vietnam summer. I remember the civil rights summer back in '64, where a lot of students and people of conscience went to the South. And I think that something like that would be good to start to set that up so that the next year, before the 2026 elections, we might have, turn some tables. And how we would go about doing that is just an idea from an old guy. But I do think there are other people who are thinking about that. And that really would challenge us to really talk to people and, make contact and friendship. I mean, I remember when you went to Parma, Ohio, working for Obama. And some people you came back around and saw a few times, and they changed with that contact. And you actually won the district, and Obama took the state. That's a thought.
Well, I love the notion of turning what we all knew 60 years ago as Mississippi summer into a, democracy summer, if you will, or summer for the Republic. I really don't know.
Save America summer.
Yeah, right. I don't know the key to getting younger people engaged. That's, to me, the real issue at this moment. I don't know that an old lady like me can stir them up and get them going. I do that for these canvases that we bring up, but in young people in large numbers, I'd like to see out in the street. And what I see in large numbers are a bunch of gray hairs like us. So I'm not sure if it's going to rely on us to save the flippin' union, but I sure would like to see either professors or parents or whoever's in touch with young people, bands, the culture, to see what it is they would like to represent themselves by. I know it's not the same as what we relate to. They're different. This is their time. I want to see them do what they can do. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking a little bit about the impact that the situation in Gaza and the gruesome attacks by the Israeli government on the people of Gaza. It's dividing the world in a lot of ways, and it's dividing at home. And the Democrats clearly did not deal with it when it came up during the last election. They, the little criticism of Israel, but not much. We kept giving them weapons, and they kept unleashing this fury of bombs on people. And that is going to that could bring down the world. It could really change it, because that battle in the Middle East and how it impacts us here at home with Trump going after students, trying to expel people, trying to shut down demonstrations because they're supposedly anti-Semitic. There's a real difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli government, militaristic government. I just think that's going to have a big impact.
Yes, it already has. I mean, it could be the reason that Kamala Harris didn't win the election, for example. It could well be that is the difference that was made. So, yeah, you're not wrong about that. And we have had incredible examples of great leadership by Jewish neighbors standing up with the T-shirt saying, "Not in my name." And they don't want Israel to be armed by us anymore. Those are very brave people, because I know for me, it's a pretty fine line to walk with some folks about what you just said, the whole or the Zionism versus how you feel about Netanyahu, who should be put in jail, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I know we're out of time, and I didn't give you as many ideas as I wanted to give you. So maybe, but everybody should be in the streets in some way this month. Either get out on Thursday night with your neighbors, which is a great way to start. Come out to the April 5th march and rally. That'll be downtown at the Daily Plaza. I'm sure it'll march because I'm sure it's going to be quite large. Americans have to get used to standing up for themselves in the streets again. They've been way not practiced. So that's it.
And long live Canada. We didn't talk about Canada and its attempts to really destroy our longtime friendship with our neighbors to the north. We'll be talking more about all of this, and I'll look forward to seeing you not too far off, Katy Hogan. Thanks for coming on the show.